So I do have questions for you.
All right.
My first question is this. What is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, my greatest accomplishment is following my inner voice and creating a system to help people become more authentic. It's a self-awareness program that I studied for 30 years. And you're going to get some of the information on that or the modification of that today. So I'm very happy and pleased with what I've created and how it's making a difference in the world.
Ah, that's wonderful. My second of three questions is this. What impact would you like to have in the world?
Well, the impact I would like to have is on an international basis, help people be more connected with their authentic self. We come to the planet with gifts and talents and with a purpose and with so much to offer. And yet, as we go through life, so often we lose what we were born with. And I would like to help people to reconnect with their initial purpose and so that they can make the real difference in the world that they were sent here to make.
Ah, beautiful. And Norma, my last question is this. What is your favorite way of having fun?
Well, my favorite way of having fun is playing cards. I'm belong to several groups and we play a card game called Bid Whist, which is a little bit more than spades and a little bit less than bridge. And it's very popular in the African-American community. I've been playing it for years, even play it for a tournament occasionally. But we just had a friend here in town and we played cards probably 3 or 4 times. So it's my favorite thing to do, and especially when I'm winning. So yeah.
Is it a gambling game or just a
no, we don't gamble. Sometimes we have pots and prizes for the ones that win the most. But it's like bridge, but not quite. You don't go around as many times, and it's like spades, except you can have a trump in any of the suits. Everything is not spades, and you can go up or down. So anyone ever want to have a lesson, I'll be happy to give you a teaching because it's online as well. But it's a lot of fun, and you play it with a partner. So there's a lot of intricacies to it, and we also have a great time just talking crazy and eating the food that we bring when we play. So.
That'll do it.
Other byproducts that are a lot of fun. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Norma.
Thank you.
Participants, if you have questions during Norma's presentation, please type them into the chat. And every 10 minutes or so, I will pose them to Norma so that all your questions will be answered by the end of her workshop. Now, you're going to be sent a link to the recording of Norma's workshop in a few hours, but nevertheless, I encourage you to take notes. The very act of you taking notes is going to increase what you absorb by as much as 30%. Norma, are you ready to knock our socks off?
Well, I don't know if I'll knock them off. I think you might want to keep your socks on, but I'm ready to be authentic with you. Yes.
The show is yours. Take it away.
Thank you. And I do want to encourage you definitely to have pencil and paper because I do have one exercise I'm going to be sharing with you and you want to have pencil and paper so you can do it. So first, I want to thank you, Roger, for having me here today. I'm delighted that you've had me talk about connecting sales with authenticity because there is a clear connection. And I want to thank all of you who are here for your curiosity in the connection of sales and authenticity, your interest in authenticity, and my ability to share with you. So thank you for being here. And I'm excited to share because it's given me a chance to broaden the work. I told you that my greatest accomplishment has been creating a program on authenticity. And I've learned that it's about energy. What I've learned in the 30 years that I researched human nature from personal, professional, and spiritual perspectives is a lot about human nature and how our human nature guides everything. And so I'm going to be talking to you a lot today about the energy of human nature and the energy that's in sales. So that, because energy is really what it's all about. And what I really have recognized in today's world is that people have changed a bit. So sales has changed. And the fact that we had last year where there was such a change in everything in the world, there was a change in how we spent our time. And so much of that change, people were saying, well, it's just time to pause. It's time to take an assessment of who we are. It's time to evaluate what our life's about and where we've been and where we're going. And a lot of people did that. And by doing that, it created. So you know that sales is about people buy from who they know, like, and trust. So the issue of who you know, like, and trust has changed a bit with the issue of the changes of last year. because so many things happened that we didn't know what was happening next. We didn't know what to trust. We didn't know who to trust. So the energy for all that has been different. And so what I want you to understand today is that, wait a minute, why isn't my slide moving? Here we go. That the energy, the right energy will make or break your sales. So energy is, if you look at how people have changed and you look at your energy, how are you changing and shifting it for the changes that happen in society? And your authentic energy is your sales superpower. When I started in sales about 25 years ago, I looked up what does it mean to be in sales, because I hadn't been in sales before. And the word that I saw most often was enthusiasm. That you should share enthusiasm with people. When you're enthusiastic, people will buy from you. Now, I wasn't quite sure what they meant by enthusiasm. And I've had a speaker, I was the owner of a speakers bureau for many years, and that was when I started my sales process. And I looked at sales at that time as you look at motivational speakers, because people say motivational speakers are full of energy. You know, they're enthusiastic. They're very hyped up when they speak. So I took that as how I'm supposed to sell. So I would sell with hyped up energy, with, you know, all energy and being excited and a little art, or maybe a lot artificial, because that wasn't really me. And I never really sold well. And I understood that because I was not defining enthusiasm appropriately. Now I look at enthusiasm as authentic enthusiasm. So what is authentic for me? How can I be authentic? How can my energy come across authentically so that people can sell from me, people can buy from me? And I realized that if I wasn't true to who I am, I'm not true to the product. I'm not true to what I'm doing. So I had to make a lot of adjustments on that in order to make it work. When I first started selling, go again, but my slides aren't moving. There we go. When I first started my career, actually, I was working at someone that I call the Grants Cafe. I was director of Head Start programs. And if you know about Head Start, it's a program for preschool children and for low-income children to help them get a better start in life. And I was the director. And in order for us to get funded, all we had to do was write a grant. And the grant is 99% sure of getting funded. And then you have money for your next year. Now, when I left Head Start, I went right from being a Head Start director, a nonprofit director, to being an entrepreneur. No pause, no school, no training. I figured that since I could manage a Head Start program, I could manage a business and run a business. Didn't know a thing about accounting. I knew math, but not accounting. I didn't know a thing about marketing, had no idea, didn't know a thing about sales. And as a result, I got into triple-figure debt and multiple triple-figure debt. And all because I just didn't take the time to really understand sales or business, and I didn't take the time to understand how I can do it best. And not only that, I wasn't in the right business, the right industry, speaker bureau, personal development, but I did not know that a bureau was a marketing company, and I was a trainer and a coach. So that adjustment too, so I had a lot to learn. I really felt very much like I was kind of a lost child trying to move forward and trying to get my slides to move forward. Slides, move. Why am I having trouble with my slides? Well, I will keep talking and the slide will have to just catch up as I go. I don't understand. So my next slide tells you a little bit about me and the fact that when I started speaking, well, I'm just going to change to the hold up. I feel like in Twilight Zone. I'm going to change to this because at least I know. I need to keep sharing the slide though. Let's see. Go back here. And I'll just work with this for now. So at least you can see the slides I'm working with. All right. So my sales journey was a little challenging. It started off very much like the little girl on the side, where I was very much alone and not sure what to do and feel like I was walking by myself down through a path that was very muddy and dangerous and scary. There was a little bit of a light in the tunnel down there, but I couldn't get to the tunnel. I couldn't find the tunnel. It was very, very scary. And that's how my sales journey started. But now, since I have really connected with my own authenticity and not tried to follow someone else's definition of how to sell and how to sell from the truth of my heart, it's made a big difference. And I'm living with a lot of joy. And that's what I'm going to teach you today, what I have learned. And what I have learned is that how you can, what I've learned and what I'm going to teach to you is how you can increase your sales by being more authentic. I'm going to teach you about authenticity and the energy of authentic sales, just what that means. What do you mean by the energy of humans and the energy of sales, and how does that work? I'm going to talk about the importance of finding your sales and your energy uniqueness. We all have a uniqueness as human beings, and as a result, we have a uniqueness in terms of how we approach sales as well. I'm going to talk about using your unique sales energy to create more impactful relationships. We talked about communication. Relations is all about communication. So improving your communication skills definitely improves your relationships. We're going to talk about how to discover your sales energy, your superpower, and your vulnerability, superpower and your kryptonite. What makes you soar with your energy as a salesperson, and what makes it very, very difficult for you to get past, because this might be your weakest spot, helping you to identify that. And then look at the impact that one small tweak can make in your sales conversation to increase your sales. And I'm going to share with you at the end the tweak that I made that caused me to have 10% increase in my sales closing just in a 6-month period from December to June of this past year. So all that I'm going to share with you today. So I'm going to start with talking about the 3 elements to selling with authenticity. And those 3 elements are first, setting the tone. Now, I'm going to be talking about things that you probably have heard in the past, but you've probably heard it in a different way. You've heard it using different language, different perspectives, and I have a way of introducing things with new language and new ways that I integrate them, put them together, that gives you a new way of understanding them. So just stay with me and just watch and listen and feel what I'm talking about to see how that impacts your sales energy. So setting the tone is one of them. You probably have heard about that in terms of building rapport. It's very similar to building rapport, but it looks at your energy as the salesperson, what's authentic for you. We're also going to talk about sharing the benefits, how you share the benefits with your potential clients in ways that impacts and enhances your authenticity. And then we'll talk about creating alignment, how you need alignment between all the different parts and how they work together, and how that makes your sales energy so much stronger and so much authentic for you. So setting the tone is the first one. And there are 3 parts to setting the tone. The first one is listen. The second one is connecting with values. And the third is engagement. And I know I have an engagement ring there, but I don't mean that kind of engagement. But I'll tell you what kind of engagement I mean as we go forward. So let's talk first about listening and setting the tone as listening. And I'm talking about listening deeply to the potential client, listening to the nonverbal language. You know, when people come into the programs, especially when I'm doing one-on-one discovery calls with them, you know, they may start by sitting back in their chair, kind of how I'm sitting, and the conversation goes. And then I'm watching to see if they if they sit up straight. Because if they move from one to here, the body language says, you know, I'm kind of curious, I'm interested. And if they lean in, then I know they're really interested. So I'm watching the body language. I'm watching where their eyes are going when we're on Zoom. I'm watching their attention. I'm watching all the things that let me know, are they connected with me? Are they really hearing me? Are we making a connection here? And if not, what can I modify? How can I change to make that happen? But now what I also want you to think about when it comes to listening is how you listen to yourself, because that is really important. Do you know that most of us have to overcome the negative self-talk that we tell ourselves? That negative self-talk impacts our ability to sell. We come across to others in the same way that we unconsciously come across to ourselves. And your negative self-talk is not your fault. My degree's in early childhood. So my first 20 years was spent in the early childhood field and understanding a lot about early childhood and family life. And what I learned about young children particularly is that for every no that they hear, And young children, especially preschoolers, hear a lot of no's. Don't touch the fire, don't do that, it's dangerous, stop, don't, no. For every no that a child hears, they need 4 to 5 positives or yeses to overcome the no's. Most of us don't get that many yeses to overcome the no's, and most of us get a lot of no's along the way. And as a result, our self-talk is being negative to ourselves. Now, when I first found this out, I took time after I gave a 90-minute presentation, and I sat down after I presented and tried to remember everything I said to myself as I was speaking. And when I got to my hotel room that night, I looked at my list and I had 30 things written on there. And 29 of those things were negative. And I went about changing the negative to a positive, picking some affirmations, and then went about the practice of repeating the affirmations until in a few years, I really didn't have negative thoughts in the same way. And I've pretty much overcome that. I seldom have negative thoughts or talk negatively about myself. So I invite you on your next sales call that when you are completed, that you try to remember what you might have said to yourself during the call. Did you say, I didn't do that right? I should have said this. I could have done that. Why didn't I? Did you say those things to yourself? Well, those are kind of negative self-talk. It's not reinforcing you. It's not giving you words to listen to that's going to drive positive results. It's taking away from your authenticity, not attributing and adding to your authenticity. So I encourage you, I invite you to check yourself when you do your next few sales calls and see if you can listen between the things you say, things that are said real deep inside yourselves that sometimes you don't hear them. And you can practice hearing what you say to yourself and modifying that. And I guarantee you that that's going to end up making a positive difference in your sales calls and your sales success.
Norma,
So,
you open to a couple of questions?
I am. I'm going to try to share again while I try to get my screen up again. So go ahead. Yes, I'm ready.
So Ali's question, you mentioned a program that you studied for 30 years. Ali is curious to know what that program is.
I studied life for 30 years. I studied human nature from personal, professional, and spiritual perspectives, just being guided by my own inner voice.
And Halima wants to know, how do you take nonverbal cues on the phone?
You listen to the sighs, the laughs, you listen for the smiles, you listen for the responses, you listen for the change in tone. You listen carefully how they respond, how quickly they respond. And you just practice that type of listening until you can get more and more fluent with it.
No further questions, back to you.
And I'm going to go back to the first question. If you want to know what I studied, then it's what I wrote. So I do have some books and some other things. I'm happy to talk to you about those later in terms of how I've translated my 30 years of training. Part of it you're getting now, but I have translated that into books and other activities. Oh, it worked. Okay. So the next one then in setting the tone is your values. So is the product that you sell aligned with your values? How can you sell a product that's not aligned with your values? It's like saying, here, go buy this, or buy this from me, with no enthusiasm. Selling is about passion. Selling is about how you can authentically share the enthusiasm I mentioned earlier, not the hype, but the enthusiasm. And the more it comes from an authentic part of yourself, the easier it is going to be to sell. It's not convincing, you're selling because of your passion, and you come across trustworthy because you have a personal connection with the product that you're selling. So if it's not aligned with your values, you have to look at some way of making the modification. I made, the modification when I had my speaker bureau. It was aligned with my values, but it wasn't aligned with, I was not a marketer. So I had to figure out that I knew I was in an industry that I loved, but I wasn't in a place in the industry that worked for me. So it's a combination of things. So the values were there, but the habits, the lifestyle, I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later, was not there. So these things need to all come together, and so that the passion shows. And that's a way to make sure that people are getting the fact that you believe in your product because you have great value for it. The next one is to set the tone through engagement. Now, engagement means how you interact with the potential client. Research says that up to 80% of the workforce is not engaged in their work. They come to work for a job, for a paycheck, without any commitment, without any real interaction, without really any caring of the quality of job that you do. Now, when you are selling, you have to be engaged. I don't think a non-engaged salesperson is going to be successful. You can't be in sales just for the money, because you can't sell that way. How can people know, like, and trust you if you don't know, like, and trust your product, if you don't engage them? So I put this picture up here because engagement has many parts to it. And when you are engaged, it means that you're willing to engage with your client at their level. What engages them? What brings them to the conversation? How can you find the parts of them that you can engage with that makes the conversation even more valuable for you and more valuable for them? So it's important to help them. And the engagement, hopefully, if it's for business to business, helps them to be more engaged in their workplace, helps them to be more engaged in their family environment, helps them to be more engaged in whatever the product that you're offering them, how that relates to their life. A lot of the sales too, in the authenticity perspective, is helping them to relate to multiple areas of their life and how the products that you're bringing to them relates to that product that you're bringing. So let's go to the next area, sharing the benefit. Sharing the benefit of the product, which impacts well-being, collaboration, and fairness. So well-being first, and this picture that I have on the left, do you remember when you were a child and there was a time when you walked with someone bigger and stronger than you, that you felt so safe and so comfortable that it did not matter? You knew that you did not have to worry. I mean, here's a man and his son walking together, and you can look that the son looks very, very content, very comfortable in spite of the looming trees, and you can't quite see where you're going. But you want to your client, you want to be in a place where you feel well-being. If you're not in an environment that helps you feel like that little boy, then maybe you're in the wrong place. That may not be the best thing to say. That's why I don't speak at corporate a lot, because I'm happy to tell people, if you're not happy where you are, it's time to make a change. Now, as entrepreneurs, you create your environment. I know that's one reason why I love being an entrepreneur, because when I had my full-time job, I didn't pick the people I worked with, and I did not share their values, and it was not easy to get along with them. But in an entrepreneur perspective, I pick the people I work with. I pick my clients. I make the difference. I set the environment. So how are you setting an environment in your business for the well-being for yourself and for the people that you work with? How do your employees' values align with your value that you created in your workplace? Are you making sure that you're doing self-care to take care of yourself while you're in the entrepreneurial world? I know as an entrepreneur that I've been for over 20 years, I spend many, many days, in fact, probably my whole life, focused on the goal of what I'm doing, more sometimes than I've done on self-care. And in my older years now, I'm finding I really have to make sure that I put self-care at the top of my list. Because what good is the business if I'm not there to continue it, or not there to make sure that it passes on in the proper way? So if you're going to be authentic about your sales, which involves the passion and the values and the listening, it also involves being your well-being, taking care of yourself and keeping yourself in an environment where you are feeling your own well-being and you're as healthy as possible, so you can pass it on and role model to the people that work for you and for your clients.
Ready for another question?
I am ready. Go ahead.
And George Herrera wants to know, how do you analyze your past presentation if you do not review what you said and did? What kind of language do you have to use?
If you're not sure, so you're talking about listening to yourself and evaluating it. You're evaluating what you said to yourself. Hearing yourself talk to yourself between the words is not easy if you've never done it. So you have to first start practicing listening deeper to yourself. It's, it's kind of hard to explain. And I have a couple of the people that I've trained that are on the call, and if they want to share that when we get past this and later, I certainly invite them to do that. But it requires, let me answer it this way. There are three things that you ask yourself every single day. Every day you ask yourself, what time is it? What am I going to wear? And what am I going to eat? And every day you answer yourself, because you come to things on time, you don't leave the house naked, and you keep eating. So what I invite you to do is see if you can figure out how the answer comes to you. It may come as a thought. It may come as a feeling. It may come as a memory. It may come as a gut feeling, a taste in the mouth. That's a clue to how you talk to yourself. So part of your talking to yourself is verbally. When you say, oh, I want that, and you're saying it to yourself, oh, I think I'll wear that. So listen for how that comes. It kind of comes in between your thoughts, in between your conscious thoughts. You have conscious thoughts and unconscious thoughts. So it's digging deeper into that. And it's a practice that you do that may make that work. And I think Ida Marie may have something to say on that a little bit later. I think she can help. So get ready, Ida. Thank you. And another question, Roger?
Question from Ali. How did you build a financial safety net that supports you so you don't have to get a job in an inauthentic environment that isn't uplifting for my well-being?
That is an excellent question that there's no real answer to. Everyone has to make their own answer to that. Blessed are the people who worked in corporate first and saved their money so that they had the cash flow to do their own business. Difficult is it for those who start their journey as an entrepreneur, especially if they're not clear of how the challenge that makes. Oftentimes, it does require you to earn your income someplace where you don't want to be. And hopefully that's a short-term environment. In my case, mine was a complete walk of faith. I worked for Head Start for my first 20 years of being in the workforce. And then because of health reasons and other psychological reasons, I call it psychologically unemployable. I had something else to do with my life rather than waste it at somebody else's job. And I just went on a leap of faith. And I just continued to follow my inner voice and do what my voice suggested that I do, and trust it. It's like know, like, and trust. Well, I knew, like, and trusted my voice and believed in it and allowed it to direct me. And if you ask me now how I made it year from year, I couldn't tell you. I just know that every year I made it. Every year my mortgage got paid. Every year my car note got paid. Every year I ate. One year I made it on, I was telling a friend today, one year I made it on insurance claims because I had two properties and they both flooded and someone hit my car. And it wasn't a bad accident, but just enough to get an insurance check. But everybody has to find their own path and their own answer for that. So you can ask that where I can see you, because I can read body language a little bit after the presentation. If you'd like to ask it again, I'd be happy to give you maybe a different answer. No
further questions. Back to you, Norma.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, the next slide is this collaboration. And collaboration is a very important aspect of being authentic in your sales. And this is where you're going to need paper and pencil, so get it if you don't have it yet. So I use this maze as the image because to me, my first brand was managing life's mazes, because to me, life was a maze. And how do you make your way out of a maze? You know, when you're in a maze, you make a step forward and you don't know if you're going to run into a wall and a path, or whether you're going to walk into an open space. And this is kind of how I felt with life. I didn't know which way to go. I didn't quite know, what to do and how to work forward. And our goal is always to get to the middle of the maze. That's where we find success. So I want to do an exercise for you that will help you in collaboration to find greater success and help you to know yourself and maybe your sales style and the style of the people who you are selling to. So if you take a piece of pencil and paper, And maybe it's when that admit is up that I can't do the slide movement. And now it chooses not to move. Why are you so sometimey? All right. There we go. So with your pencil and paper, make a cross like this with a long vertical and a long horizontal line. Put the word formal at the top of the vertical line and informal at the bottom of the vertical line, and dominant and easygoing on the horizontal lines. And now thinking about yourself, decide for yourself on the vertical line if you see yourself as more formal or as more informal, and make a mark on the vertical line by the degree to which you are either formal or informal, but no marks in the middle. Do the same for the horizontal line, whether you see yourself as more dominant or more easygoing, and make a mark that indicates where you see yourself, but again, not in the middle. And this is where my marks are. You see, I have one mark that I'm more informal than formal, and I'm more dominant than I am easygoing. Actually, I was more formal as a child because I was raised in a more formal environment, which is, I understand now, is why I got so confused growing up, because I'm really more of an informal person. So I had to, as most of us do, learn who I am and to be more authentic long after I left my parents' house. So make your marks and then bring the marks together so that you fall in one of the 4 quadrants. And now to tell you about the 4 quadrants, starting with the top right one, that is the explaining analytical quadrant. If you ended up in that quadrant, then you are a person who likes a lot of information. You like to have a lot of knowledge. You have to be careful when you are selling that you don't put too much knowledge and information on those who don't want that information. Some people like the detailed people like the details. The non-detailed people don't. If you're in the bottom right, you are in the assisting, supporting category. In that category, you like to support other people. You like to help them create their success. You may not be the engine that makes everything go. You have your own engine, but you have a lot of fun doing it. And you like being around people who are also a lot of fun. You're a great support person and a great person to have around to support a product and to get something sold. If you're on the bottom left, you're motivating, like a motivational speaker. You're high energy, you're idea person. And if you're on the top left, you're a telling, controlling person. You like to take control. You like to be in charge. Now, I share this with you for a couple of reasons. One, it can help you identify the style of your potential client. So if you meet a client who is dressed very formally, male, suit, tie, they probably work for a formal organization, then they're probably above the line. They're more formal. Either they're controlling and they want you to sell them in ways that helps them to be in control, helps them to strengthen that control factor. And if they're on the right side of explaining, analyzing, then you sell them by giving them information. They want data. They want to know the facts. Give me the details. If they come in high energy, then they're either on the left or the right. If they're left, they're idea people. If they keep telling you about, I got a great idea. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm creating this. I'm creating that. You know, they're motivating. You sell to them more from the idea. Great idea. Here's a great idea to get to do this, or however that works for your product. And if you're on the bottom right side, you sell to them by how much fun it is, by how it brings joy in your life, and how it helps them support other people. Now, also looking at it in terms of how you are selling, you want to make sure if you're in the telling side, you're not doing too much to control if the person is not in the controlling side. So it's being authentic to who you are, knowing who you are, but knowing how to modify your personality so that you can adapt to the needs of the person that you're selling to. And again, by looking at this, it'll help give you clues of how to sell to the people that you're meeting. Now, a word of caution here, if you will, is that the ones that are kitty corner from each other are the hardest ones you're going to sell to. Because if you're a motivating person, your natural tendency is to, I've got this great idea, this great sales thing, it's going to do so much for you. And all they want to know is the details. So you're turning them off by giving them too much hype. and vice versa. If you're the explaining person and you give too many details to the motivating person, you're going to bore them and they're not going to move forward. Likewise, with the telling and assisting, the telling person might think that the assisting is just not serious enough. And the assisting might think the telling is too serious. So it's an issue of being authentic enough to know who you are, understanding where your client is coming from, and adapting to it so that you can be authentic in your sales and still give them what they need in the way they need to receive it. Now, the next one on sharing the benefit is fairness. Can you negotiate fairly? So can you negotiate in such a way that you maintain the dignity of the entire experience? In my particular business, I'm a coach and I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. And so what that enables me to do and have a great deal of flexibility about the price that I charge. So it's like walking a tightrope and carrying that stick with me. If I go too much on the high side of the price, I could lose a client because I went too high. If I go too much on the low side, I'm losing my time. I'm losing my income producing time because I'm giving too much away. So how do you find the balance and still be fair, not only to your client, but also to yourself? Can you negotiate fairly? Are you a good negotiator? How do you work that? But the benefit, making sure that they get the benefit of the product by making sure that you do an authentic negotiation and do it fairly.
You want a question?
That's fine. Yes, go ahead.
Halima wants to know, what other cues do you use to figure out their personality type besides their clothing?
Besides their clothing, well, it's how they talk. You know, how do they greet you? They greet you very formally. You know, hello, Mrs. or Miss So-and-so, it's so nice to meet you. They meet you like, hey, how you doing? You know, so one is formal, one is informal. That's going to tell you. How do they move? What kind of briefcase do they carry? Do they have a purse? You know, so are they in flip-flops? How's the language? How's the energy around them? How inviting are they? As you begin to practice that, you will see more and more ways to make yourself aware of that. Some industries are more formal naturally than other industries are, and others can be either way. Like coaching could be either way. You could have a flip-flop coach, or you could have a tie person who's a coach. It just depends on what coaching you're doing and what you're looking for. So there's so many elements to that it's hard to say, but as you just practice it, you'll get to notice it more and more. Practice it first around your friends, the people that you already know. Look at how they dress, how they act, how they talk, how they maneuver themselves, how they drive. All of those are clues to what style they have.
What about dominant versus easygoing? What are the clues there?
The easiest clue I can give you there is dominant people generally tell, and easygoing people you generally ask.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, I beg your pardon. One has just arrived. What are some of the questions to ask when you are negotiating?
Well, it depends on what you're negotiating on. Are you negotiating on a price? Are you negotiating on features? Are you negotiating on value? So, you know, you have to figure as you get to know the client and as you're doing the collaborating with them and you're seeing what the objections might be, where the hesitations might be. Those are where you want to face your questions. You want to probe in questions that gives you more information to continue the conversation. The main thing you want to do is keep the conversation going. You haven't got to know yet, and you want to move closer and closer to the yes. So as I show you how all this comes together, you'll be able to see some of the ways you can move from one energy to another to see, to draw the client in more and more based on their energy.
No further questions.
All right. So now we're on creating alignment. And the three aspects are perspective, empathy, and habits. So in perspective, what perspective do you come from? Now, when I say perspective here, one perspective is just how you view the world, how you view the product, how you view life, and that plays a major role. But I also want to talk for a minute about your gifts and talents and how your gifts and talents come into play. If you want to research gifts and talents, just write down the name Dr. Howard Gardner. Dr. Gardner, about 50 years ago, identified 9 different ways that students learn as a way to help teachers modify their curriculum. many which did not, but nonetheless, he has the information. I refer to these 9 as your wisdom gifts. And essentially, it's how you view the world. It's the perspective you bring with yourself as you maneuver around the world. So write these down. I'm gonna go through them quickly, and you can research them if you want to know more. One is verbal linguistic, people who approach the world through words, whether they're spoken, written, editors, people of that nature, publishers. Visual spatial, people who like color, who are able to maneuver space and see space, people who are fine artists. Bodily kinesthetic, people who like to move around. They are yourself, people that are in the car, that love to be outside and around in the world. Like to touch things, bodily kinesthetic. Musical, people who like sound, who like rhythm, and who are beating the drum, singing, things of that nature. People who are naturalistic, like to be outside. People who like landscapes, like animals, just being outdoors. Mathematical, logical, people who not only like numbers, but they're very logical in their thinking and they're problem solvers. Interpersonal, people who like people. They like being around other people. A lot of natural salespeople are very interpersonal. All of us are not, because we're more in our product in many cases than we are in the sales itself. And so many of us are very intrapersonal, which is one of the other ones. And intrapersonal, people that go within. They learn by going in. That's what I did, as I mentioned earlier, by being in my inner voice and learning how to move my life forward. By the way, your inner voice is the seat of your authenticity. And the 9th one is called existential. And existential is your energy people, people who understand energy and work with energy. This is a gift that Dr. Howard identified, as I said, over 50 years ago, but it wasn't recognized by the general population until about 20 years ago. It just was not accepted.
Norma,
So
do you have those 9 things on a slide?
I will look for one after the presentation is over and see, and I can also tell you where you can take an assessment to learn what your gifts are. I have a school called AuthenticityU.com, and there's a $19 program for identifying your gifts and talents. And it'll give you the questions and help you know where your gifts are. And what I recommend to you is that to look at what are your top 3 gifts, because whatever you do in your world, in your life, your top 3 gifts, 1 or more of them should be involved in that. If your business represents one of your top 3 gifts, you're in a good place. You're in a place where you are happier, you are doing what you love, you're connected with yourself. If you're not doing something in your top 3 gifts in your business, then in your playtime, you should be doing that, because your top 3, it's who you are. It's who you were made to be. That's your authenticity. So your most natural clients would be clients who share the same gifts that you do, because you have a lot, you see the same perspective. You see the world the same way. That's probably easy for people who might sell music, for example, because you're only going to sell to people who like music. So you wouldn't sell music unless you love music. And people who you're going to sell to also love music. That's an easy connection. Some connections are not that easy, but the more you're connecting your clients with these parts of your authentic self, the easier your sales are going to be, the more you're going to raise your sales. Any questions on that, Roger?
Yeah, Diane is asking that you please type your website into your chat.
All right, I will do that when I finish the presentation. Be happy to. Okay, the next part is creating alignment is empathy. Are you sensitive to the needs of the potential client? I use this picture because how sensitive can you be to hold a butterfly on your finger and still enough to get a great picture of it? So that's a sensitivity that allows you to connect with your clients. Now, some people are empaths. Some entrepreneurs are empaths. Now, an empath is a person who feels the energy of other people. Serious empaths actually can feel another person's accident, for example, or feel that it's going to happen. It's that energy thing that we don't understand a lot, that I'm talking about a lot today to help you understand. But being empathetic means being sympathetic to the person you're talking to, understanding what they're going through, sympathizing with them, being compassionate with them, helping them to, allowing your personality to support them. So I highly encourage you to, if you do not feel that you're empathetic and that you have empathy, to research that, because that could be where your kryptonite is, where your vulnerability is, that you're not able to connect with people in a passionate way. And if you're too empathetic, that can be a problem because you get to be too much of a bleeding heart and you lose that balance, unless you've done it too much and you realize that you've lost the balance. But you don't want to be, you want to be kind of in the middle of empathy so that you can be sensitive to your clients, but not be overly sensitive to them. And then the last one is your habits. Do your habits support your sales lifestyle? So if you're someone who stays out too late or drinks too much or doesn't get the right rest or doesn't get your sales pitch in order together, or all of those things that you have not created a healthy habit for, you're going to want to work on that, because you need to have healthy habits in order to have a healthy and successful sales practice. So your lifestyle is really important. And my recommendation to you, as I've shared these things with these elements with you, is to tweak one thing, to find one thing to tweak that could turn your whole sales around. The elements that I've talked to you about must be intertwined. They do not operate in a vacuum. They operate collectively. You have to share the tone, share the value and the benefits, and create alignment all at the same time. So I put them together in my grid. I told you that what I do is I make grids. My first grid, I took 30 years, and now I take the energy and modify it in different ways. So this is what the grid looks like when you put all 9 of those elements together. You see the vertical for share the tone, for share the benefit, set the tone, share the benefit, and create alignment. And now on the far left, you see the 3 words think, communicate, and do. So those are processes. Some of us are thinkers, and we like to plan, strategize, evaluate, create, pray, make things happen through our inner voice and what have you. Some of us are communicators. We communicate through our values, through how we collaborate, and through our empathy. And some of us are doers. We're engaged, we're fair, and we have healthy habits. So the question is, where is your strength and where are you vulnerable? If you look at those and you think about it, they all are intertwined. When I look at and wonder if my empathy is at the right level, I have to ask myself, am I listening adequately? Do I need to listen more? Am I missing something? Do I need to modify my habits? What do I need to do in order to strengthen my sales success? What do I need to do with my personal energy? What do I need to understand more? What do I need to tweak? How do I need to tweak it? I told you I was going to share with you what I did to make a change in my sales. I sell by one-on-one conversations. I do webinars, and then I have one-on-one calls. And I did really well last December and closed 70% of the people that I spoke to for a webinar that I did in January. But what was in, and I was just delighted, you know, because that was the first time I'd had that level of, I'd done pretty good in the past, but I was really looking at my authenticity and being more authentic myself and modifying from the false enthusiasm that I started with to the enthusiasm of my own sales energy. And it made a difference for me. But I also changed it even more so that in the program that I did this past May, I raised my sales success by 10% and ended up with 80% closing in the sales that I did. And as I evaluated that, what I realized is what I was doing is taking more time in the collaboration and the listening, and taking a little more time in the perspective. I'm thinking of one client in particular that I talked to who wanted all this stuff and wanted me to coach her personally and all of this. And when I listened to her and I gave her a proposal and she rejected it pretty quickly, I had to go back and think about, well, what did I do wrong? Where did I miss the mark on here? And I realized that I missed the mark, that I didn't listen deeply enough. I listened well enough to hear what she needed, but there was one question that I did not ask her that I should have asked her to take it even deeper. And that question was to get a better feel for her financials and how much was she willing. Even though she said she wanted to work with me personally, I didn't get a range of what range was her tolerance level. And I gave her something that was above her tolerance level. But I'm not done with her because she didn't fully say no. So I, having evaluated that, I can go back and reopen the conversation and negotiate a little more fairly. That's next to collaboration, and engage a little differently and create more value for her that will likely help her to make her, I can bring her over because I believe that I can by coming back in a different way. So the no was never there. So I can always go back and modify my sales energy. I can use my grid here to evaluate my energy and see where I need to be stronger. Where was my kryptonite on this? Where is my strength and how do I use that? And so as I'm closing out my presentation, I want to offer you the opportunity to understand where your strengths and vulnerabilities are in the sales energy grid. Actually, I turn all of my grids into an assessment. So what I'm offering is for you to take my sales assessment, and I'm trying again to get my slide to move, then it's not being cooperative, and I don't know why. Let me move this thing here and see if that's going to make a difference. I don't want that. I don't want that. All right. I don't know if it's the heat, it's pretty warm out here. So I will, what I need to do, I need to stop share for a minute. And now I need to go here. I apologize for my uncooperative computer today. And
Don't feel any pressure, Norma. There's only 66 eyes boring themselves into your forehead.
well, I'm glad that there are so many eyes. Okay, so I need to enter that. So I'm glad that there are so many eyes pouring. And if you just be patient a minute, are there any questions I can answer while I'm going through this?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid you're going to have to ride this one out in silence.
Well, let me ask Ida Marie, if she's on the call, if she can answer the question that I asked earlier. I forgot what it was, but it had to do with connecting with your inner voice and how you do that. Because Ida Marie has been in my class for a while. And I hope, I know I'm putting her on the spot, but I know she can help you out.
You sure did. So the question is, how do you connect with your inner voice?
Yeah, can you give some more clarity on that?
Yes, a little bit more. She really put me on the spot, but I'll give it a try. So connecting with your inner voice for me is listening to that still voice, small voice that's within you that might say, go right, and you go right. Or, let's see, that gives you direction and guidance. Or even if you come across somebody, let's go back to the example where she was talking about the formal, informal, dominant, and easygoing. So for me, I fell in the assisting, supporting grid, that part. That is me 100%. I'll always be there. But what I often do is come across other people, like she said, the telling on the other side. And a lot of times the challenge is listening to them and then best not taking away from you, but getting the clues to help you further explain yourself to them or ask the question or better present yourself. And those, like she was saying, how she evaluated herself when she was talking so many negative things at the end of her speech, she had to go back in and start changing those things. Those are things that are your inner voices telling you or making you recognize that will tweak you and push you in the right direction. I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you, Ida.
Okay.
I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I think I got it working again. At least I think it is. So what I'm offering you is the opportunity to understand your own energy, your own sales energy. And I have a program called Energize Your Sales. I'm going to give you the authenticity, the sales assessment. So you're going to answer a question in each one of these 9 areas of your energy. And we're going to figure out where your strength is and where your vulnerability is. So, and I'm going to help you to interpret your scores. What's interesting about my grids and my assessments is that you don't just get one score, you actually get 16 different scores. But there's 4 critical ones that will help you know where your strength is, where your superpower is, where your kryptonite is, how it kind of aligns with each other, where you need to focus your attention so that your sales energy is more balanced and more aligned. You're also going to discover what's your strengths and vulnerability, your superpower and your vulnerabilities, and it'll help you identify what is the one thing you need to tweak. Generally, you just need to tweak one thing, at least one at a time, and see how that makes a change. Like I said, I tweaked in terms of listening a little bit stronger and also more collaboration, and that made a big difference in my sales success. We're going to have Q&A to gain more clarity and group coaching and maybe some hot seats to put the learning in practice. So it's probably a little different way to look at your sales, but remember, it's all about energy. And the energy is a little different now than it was before COVID. People want a little more authenticity in life as a whole in order to get more success. And in sales, that's definitely possible. So it's going to be a 2.5-hour program I'm offering next week, Wednesday, from 9 to 11:30. The value is $497, but your price is only $47. And you can sign up at Energize Your Sales, and Roger's going to put the link in the chat box so that you can get that. And I encourage you to sign up and join me. And it's going to be next week, Wednesday, from 9 o'clock until 11. Again, we're going to get a form that I'm going to ask you the 9 questions, and you're going to answer the questions. You're going to score yourself, and then you're going to put the scores on a grid. So you'll have your own personal grid with your scores on there. And it's a very interesting way that the different vertical scores relate to each other. And also you're going to get horizontal scores for whether you're a thinker, communicator, or doer, or whether you're really good at setting the tone or sharing the benefits or creating the alignment, and how that mixes. And then if you have a sales team, it's also going to help you evaluate what you need on your team to have more strength, because you need a certain variety and collection of people that's going to keep the energy balanced and keeping it moving forward. So I encourage you, it's only $47. I encourage you to sign up, and I'll be talking with you next Wednesday. Now, are there other questions, Roger?
Is the time 9 a.m. Pacific or some other time zone?
Oh, thank you for that. It is 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you. Yes.
And you may as well confirm that it is 47 US dollars.
Thank you very much. It is 47 US dollars.
No further questions.
And it will be recorded as well.
Great.
So you have it in the chat box. I'm going to stop sharing and go up for more Q&A. And I also said I would share, if you want to take the gifts and talents inventory, then that would be at authenticityu.com, which I'll put in the box now.
I put it in the chat already.
Oh, thank you, Marie. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So authenticityu.com, and Marie's already put that in there.
All right. There's no further questions. Participants, Norma's all yours.
And if anyone cannot make it and wants to stay in touch, feel free to reach out to me at coaching@normahollis.com. Coaching@normahollis.com.
Okay, I'll put that in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Norma, would you like to make some concluding comments?
Well, I think the most important thing that I would like to say to you is to really connect more with your own inner voice and let it help guide you on your sales journey. Once you create that relationship with your inner voice, you have a friend for life that is going to help you move your life and yourself forward in ways maybe you never considered before. If you're not sure how to do that, go back to what I said about listening to how you answer the question, what am I going to wear? What time is it? What am I going to eat? We all say that every single day, multiple times in the day. And we all have our own unique way of answering that. So how are you answering that? How are you answering yourself in terms of listening to who you are and how you're talking to yourself? That's the seed of your authenticity. When you have clients that you're pondering what to do next with, talk to yourself, ask your voice, sleep on it, see what happens in the morning. Give yourself an opportunity to let your inner voice give you the answer. No one knows you better than you. And all you have to do is open up the opportunity to allow you to know you better. And that allows you also to be more authentic and then yourself to be more successful.
Norma, thank you so much for those unique perspectives. I particularly like the grid, the formal, informal, dominant, and easygoing, because that not only helps me have good conversations professionally, but also personally.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything that I've shared with you is also applicable in your personal life. Yes.
Beautiful. Well, on behalf of us 78-ish thousand entrepreneurs and micropreneurs, solopreneurs, I thank you hugely for sharing your wisdom, for your decades of experience, all good stuff. Thank you so very much, Norma.
And thank you, Roger, for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you to all of you. Appreciate you.